Hello and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. In today's video I will be experimenting with aluminium foil and alcohol inks partnered with epoxy resin to create a really fabulous mirrored colourful effect in my resin coasters. I wasn't sure how it would turn out, but I was pleasantly surprised, and if you would like to see the experimental journey, stay tuned and enjoy the video. First of all, you'll need some aluminium kitchen foil like I've got here, and all you need to do is tear some pieces off, all the same size. Try to get them all the same. I think I did 4. I did more than I need really. I'm doing 4 coasters, and yeah, you need to only do 2 big pieces at this stage, but I did 4. I don't know why, but I ended up with extras. Anyway, once I'd torn off 4 pieces, I cut them all in half. My coasters are 10 centimetres in diameter, and the foil needs to be a few centimetres larger than that, so these are about 15 centimetres in width. The alcohol inks I'm using today are a cheap set which I've had a long time. I got them a long time ago and wanted to use them for alcohol ink art, and they just weren't up to the job at the time. So they've been stuck in my storage, and I found that for this they worked perfectly, and there was a brilliant range of colours. So yeah, I used those. You don't need to use your best alcohol inks for this. Just go for some cheap ones if you've got them, or if you need to buy some. I wanted 2 colours for each coaster, so I found ones which I thought would go well together. So I've got lavender and fuchsia, mango and navy, lemon and kiwi, and ruby and forget-me-not. Right then, let's get messy. Now, before we begin, I need to tell you, you will need to protect your work surface and wear gloves. I've got a big puppy pad on my table, and as you can see, I'm wearing nitrile gloves. And then lay your aluminium foil down, and on one of the pieces, add lots of drops of ink wherever you want to, however you want it to be distributed. I kind of just did it randomly. And then once you've added as much ink as you want to add, sandwich the other piece on top and smooth it down, and then carefully peel it off again. And if you're happy with how it's all looking, that's fine. Leave it to dry. If you're not happy, add some more ink until you are. And as you can see, you get a nice even coverage, and that lovely aluminium foil can still shine through the alcohol ink, so you get a really lovely effect. I did something similar to this many years ago when I was interested in glass painting, and I used glass paints. They work really well as well. So if you have glass paints but you don't have alcohol ink, I would recommend having a go with those. You get lovely jewel light colours. So I just continued with the same method until I had them all coloured. So what I will do is I will fast forward a little bit, because obviously it took me a while. So while you're watching that, I can tell you a few things about what I thought about this process. Now, the first thing I would say is that the darker colours turned out better. The pale pink one wasn't so good. You couldn't see the contrast in the finished piece, but the other ones, which were darker, worked really well. The greens and the blues and the yellows really did look good. So yeah, I would recommend having good, deep, vibrant colours rather than going for the pale effect. The other thing I would say is when you've put your ink on and you're leaving it to dry, make sure it's as flat as you can get it. Otherwise, the wet ink will run a little bit and you will get run marks, which actually don't really matter. But yeah, I would recommend trying to get them as flat as possible. And speaking of drying, these dry super quickly, in about 10 minutes I would say, but leave it 20 just to make sure. And then, yeah, you're ready for the next step. And the next step is to turn them over and do exactly the same on the other side. Or you might actually want to do it slightly differently. If there was something you didn't like about one side, add a different colour. With this one, I decided to add some fuchsia as well as the ruby and forget-me-not, and I preferred it in the end. So yeah, if there's something you don't like, change it a little bit on the other side. So I did the same thing on all the other ones, left them to dry, and then we were ready for the next step again. And I won't show you it all because you've seen it all before now, haven't you? Right, the next job is to cut them into circles, and you want your circles to be a little bit bigger than your finished coaster. My coaster cavities are 10 centimetres in diameter, and I found the lid from a box which was about 13 and a half actually centimetres in diameter. So yeah, find something bigger than your finished coaster for this step, then draw around it and cut it out. So once you have your circle, you're going to scrunch it up, and that you don't need to be too careful scrunching it up, but you do need to be very careful unscrunching it because that's your next job. So once it's all scrunched up and made it all crinkly, just very, very, very slowly and carefully undo it again until it comes back to the size of the coaster mould cavity. So obviously, because it's scrunched, it won't be as big as it was before. That's why we made our original circle bigger than the cavity. And once it's all unscrunched, you can put it into the cavity of your mould to check it for size and just manipulate the edges until it's all nice and neat in the mould. Then take it out and you'll have your disc in just the right size, ready for when you do the resin part in a minute. So once you've got your 4 aluminium foil discs prepared, take a look at them, and if you're not happy with them, it's not too late to add some more ink. That's what I did on this green one. I actually added some blue to the darker green side to make that green even darker, and I used my gloved finger just to dab it around a bit so that there weren't any puddles, and it made all the difference. It really did, improve it. I was pleased that I'd done that. And in fact, it adds a little bit more contrast where it puddles a little bit and dries, because you get those darker bits. And if you rub it all with your finger on the top, where there's the raised patterns, that rubs away. So you get even more of a depth there. So yeah, it's quite interesting doing it. It's hard to explain, but if you have a go, you'll see what I mean. It's really worth experimenting with. Right, once I was happy with them all, it was time for the resin. I mixed up 200 millilitres of the Let's Resin epoxy resin, which I love to bits. And my original idea was just to half fill them, put the discs of aluminium foil in and let that cure and then top it up, because I thought maybe it would all float to the top and I didn't want my coasters to be lumpy. But in actual fact, they didn't really do that, and I ended up doing it all in one go, so I didn't quite have enough resin to do them all in one go, and I mixed a little bit more later on. Anyway, I'm ahead of myself now. This mould is from Moulds and Shapes. I've used it a lot now, so it might be looking a little bit scruffy, but it's a really good mould. So yeah, I would recommend that. I will put a link and a discount code for this mould in the video description. Right. If you thought the first part was messy, well, it's going to get messier. And you will see the real reason why I said you need gloves. I mean, obviously, you need gloves for the alcohol ink because you'll have coloured fingers for days. But this is where you really, really need gloves. So after popping all the bubbles with my heat gun, it was time to put the discs into place. Now, obviously, you need to press them down. And because they fill the void, all the resin that's underneath that wants to come up will come up, up the sides of the mould, and you will need to push it back in again just by swiping it back in with your fingers. It's not a problem. I expected it to happen, but if you don't like messy jobs, this one might not be for you. So I'm fast forwarding again because it did take me a little while, and basically all I'm doing is giving it a little squidge around. Don't press it down too much because you don't want to lose all that raised texture, but in places you can press down just to make the resin from underneath come up from underneath to the top. And you know, I was expecting loads of air pockets underneath when I demolded them, but there weren't any, so that was amazing. It looked good from both sides. So yeah, don't worry too much about that, it was fine. And yeah, just do the same thing with all four. You need to press down at the corners, not the corners, there's no corners in a circle, Lou. Around the edges. Yeah, press down because that's where it will start to raise, and that is why I painted both sides of the aluminium foil, because at this stage some from the back would show through the front and you'd have silver edges, you know, if it folds over, and I didn't want silver edges folding over. That's why I coloured both sides. Plus, if you colour both sides, you've got a choice of which side you want to be the top and which side you want to be the bottom, haven't you? And then I took a lollipop stick and just pressed down, although actually it's not a lollipop stick, it's a coffee stirring stick, and pressed down all the way around the edges just to make sure there was no trapped air and that there was no bits sticking up. And then it was just about ready to fill up with resin. But what I did do was decided, because I had a little bit of leftover resin, and it was before I decided to just fill them up, I did a heart for the middle. I just got some other foil that I'd made a heart shape and put that in and did exactly the same thing there. After that, I mixed up a little bit more resin and filled them all up to the top. And then I used my hot air gun to get rid of any bubbles and left it secure. I did keep going back to check on it just in case anything was floating up, or if in case any air had escaped from underneath that would need popping. But it was actually all right. I didn't really need to do anything. So yeah, it was a lot less trouble than I expected this experiment to be. So yeah, I was very happy. Right then, it's time to demold, and you're not going to see them in great detail at the moment, but you will do soon. My problem is the sun was shining so brightly. It was early morning, and my craft room really gets the sun really quite a lot in the mornings, and you can't really see them as well as they look in real life. So I will take some photographs to give you a better look in a minute. So yeah, there they are. It's not bad, you can kind of see, but yeah, I was really happy with them. And once I took them out of the mould, I did a silver edge, which I will show you next. So at the moment you can see I'm just turning the camera around to try and see if we can get some better quality video. And I don't know if it made that much difference, but anyway, yeah, they turned out nice. And as I said before, I really think the ones with the dark colours and the contrast between the dark and the light work so much better. I like this one a lot, but I was really disappointed with the pink one. It was all a little bit samey. That one was better because it had the darkness in there and then the light pink and a little bit of light blue as well. So go for contrast. I would suggest going for contrast. It seems to work a lot better. Right, so I've got my silver chrome marker from Let's Resin. Oh, I love this pen so much. It actually looked like real chrome when I'd finished. So I'm going just around the top edge first and then colouring in the sides. Once the paint's dry, I would recommend turning them upside down, taking them outside and giving them a spray of acrylic varnish, and that will protect them really well. And for the top surface, I would recommend a layer of heat-resistant resin. I use Heat Pro from Resin Pro, and that works really well. And as promised, here's a little bit of video and some photographs taken in a better light. Typically, I chose to show you the one with the big bubble on the top, didn't I? But look, the back's good as well. So overall, I'm really happy with the end results, and I think I will be doing it again. It's a good one if you're a beginner with resin and you don't want to experiment with different pigment effects. This is kind of more of a foolproof thing that you can do. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this for a beginner. And yeah, what do you think? Let me know what you think. Now we've come to the end of the video. If you haven't already subscribed and you would like to, please do. Please also give me a thumbs up, and I will see you again next time. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.